The sheriff and I are both happy to do this as a joint press release because this truly is an effort between the District Attorney's Office through our Asset Forfeiture Division and Bond Forfeiture, Claudia Laird, and the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, Detective Scott Davis. The sheriff and I are merely the representatives, the symbols of the offices that we hold in great trust. And so, Ms. Nowak, as you became aware, you became a victim of a fraud. And so we had a press release, and the reason behind the press release is not so the sheriff and I can stand up here and look good and take the credit from Scott and Claudia. The reason is to get the word out there to the streets that there are other Miss Nowaks and other Ralph Nowaks who work hard, and they put their money into trust in some people, because usually in Montgomery County, you look somebody in the eye and you shake their hand, that bond is as good as gold. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with people on the internet, you're dealing with predators often. And so we assembled a press release. We'd like to read it to the media, and hopefully the media will capture some of what's going on and kind of get the word out there a little bit. Opened the recovery of $11,200 in cash from a bank account suspected of belonging to international criminals associated with the Russian Mafia. Detective Scott Davis of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office received a summary of a report from a complainant regarding a fraudulent transaction on the internet auction site eBay. The complainant alleged they had purchased farming equipment through a seller on eBay in February of this year. The complainant alleged that the equipment was due to be delivered to her no later than March 5th, and that suspicion was aroused when the equipment failed to arrive. The check is in the mail. You know what they always say. The complainant also alleged that she contacted eBay Security and was informed that the transaction was fraudulent, thereby resulting in the filing of a report with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. And that's where Scott Davis takes over. Detective Davis immediately began to verify the information in the report and learned that the eBay sellers were engaged in a multi-million-dollar scam. The proceeds of this theft and others from around the country were linked to an account which had recently been seized as a result of a criminal investigation. Detective Davis also learned that the account was tied to members of the Russian Mafia, that those perpetrating this fraud were most likely international criminals and were not operating from the United States, and that all documentation regarding the account was linked to stolen passports. After completing his investigation with eBay, the bank, and national law enforcement, Detective Davis contacted Claudia Laird. That's the young lady sitting right here behind you. She's with the District Attorney's Office newly created Civil Litigation and White Collar Crimes Division. Due to the international nature of the investigation and the possibility of funds being transferred, Laird and Davis immediately prepared documents on behalf of the complainant in an effort to seize the funds and return the cash to Montgomery County. Judge Fred Edwards of the 9th District Court reviewed the documents and authorized the seizure on behalf of the complainant. So what they did was prepared seizure documents from the account. And so the account was millions of dollars in there. And we believe that those monies were stolen from people like you all over the country that were thinking, hey, they were getting a good deal. You know, sometimes if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Within days of receiving the information, Davis and Laird recovered the complainant's cash, and we're about to return it to you. Sheriff Tommy Gage stressed that he was pleased with the prompt work of Detective Davis and cooperation of the county personnel involved. District Attorney Brett Liggins stated that this case is a good example of the dangers of cybercrime to the people of our state, and I hope that people will be cautious when conducting business on the internet, because most cases don't end this quickly with a quick recovery of their property. So on behalf of the sheriff and I know the sheriff has got a few kind words as well.
Absolutely, and like we said this morning, certainly we're fortunate in that because of the good work of the Detective Division and the District Attorney's Office and all, that we were able to get your money back. So many people today are involved in these scams and never get a nickel back. It's hard to capture these people. It's one of the hardest crimes that we have to work. So in the lesson that we've learned today, as we said earlier, everyone needs to be so careful in any transaction that they make with eBay or anything on the internet. If you can't put your hands on it, or you don't know who you're dealing with, leave it alone. Mm-hmm. So with that, it's certainly an honor for the District Attorney and I to stand here today because of our folks that did an outstanding job to get this $11,200 back for the nation. Yes, ma'am.
There you go. That's the lead.
All right.
Thank you.
Brett, first of all, your name?
Brett Liggins, Montgomery County District Attorney.
Tell me a little bit about this case.
The most interesting fact of this, and I think that the two things we want to get out is, number one, the cooperation between the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department personnel and the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. Detective Davis became aware of an internet scam that was perpetrated on the Nowak family. They're just a hard-working family out of Willis, Texas, involved with fencing, barbed wire, and the whole 9 yards. And they had seen an ad on the internet that seemed too good to be true, and in reality it turned out to be too good to be true. Believe it or not, once Detective Davis with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department started investigating it, it had international legs extending out into the entire community, not just in Texas, but the United States and worldwide. We believe that the Russian Mafia has been perpetrating this computer fraud or this internet fraud, selling items on eBay. And so what happens is they'll hang out an attractive piece of meat. In this case, it was a tractor. They'll have people, just hard-working people, send money into them when obviously there really is no item to be had. When Detective Davis did the legwork, he contacted the District Attorney's Office through Claudia Laird and said, hey, we need to go after this account. What do we do? Claudia Laird jumped on immediately. We're able to procure a warrant to seize the funds from this account before the feds and before the other state agencies had gotten involved and depleted the account. So we're able to get a seizure order through Judge Edwards. And in fact, the check that the sheriff presented to the Nowaks this morning are the proceeds that were seized from this account full of stolen funds.
Well, it's fun. Where was it at? Is it a local bank or?
Yeah, luckily they had a local branch of the bank here. I don't want to go. The investigation is still ongoing. It was more important for us than the back end. It's obviously going to be difficult for us to extradite and prosecute a bunch of people from the Russian Mafia. The more important thing that the sheriff and I both want to put out there is be aware of internet scams. The NOAC said it great. The sheriff said it best. You know, if you can't put your hands on it, if you can't touch the item, or if you're dealing with people that you don't know personally, then you probably better leave it alone. When it comes to large purchases like this, it's better to deal locally. And that's really the message that we're trying to get out.
But, I mean, on eBay, you've got, it shows someone, how many times someone's, what kind of quality service or what kind of quality they've had over a period of time, a history basically.
Well, but all that can be defrauded. And so what you have is fake users who are saying that they received fake service and they're fake happy. So the next thing you know, you get some honest, hardworking people like the NOACs that look on the transactional history, and it appears that there's a great transactional history, when in fact the whole thing is nothing more than a scam. It's a house of cards.
Well, my husband and I were needing some equipment for our fencing company, and my husband had seen it on eBay. And it was at a price affordable, and if it had worked out, we'd have been, it would have been a great asset to our company. But once we completed the transaction with eBay, the equipment was never delivered, and I started trying to get eBay involved with their resolution department, and then that's when I found out that we had been scammed. And so I immediately reported it to the sheriff's department, and they worked really hard and moved quickly on it and was able to recover the money for us.
What about as far as the recovery? I mean, something like this is a lot of money. Tell me a little bit about, what it feels like to get this money back just this quick after you've, from the point that you're saying, oh my gosh, yeah, we just got scammed, now what?
Well, it's very frightening and heartbreaking at the same time, but to be able to recover the money and get it all back is just, I'm ecstatic. I'm just thankful to God that we were able to get it back. And I know that's a rare thing, but we're real blessed that we were able to get it back.
Y'all purchased quite a bit on eBay, or?
No, actually, that was our first time. Didn't quite know the road. Yeah, first time and last. I suggest that if anyone wanted to buy any equipment and things like that, or a vehicle, that it needs to be local where they can go see it, test drive it, check it out, and make sure there's a clear title, and get proper sales receipts and all that before they allow money to change hands. Make sure it's legitimate.
Well, I think that this case was a great case because we were successful in getting to the money before it got taken out from under our jurisdiction. We were very lucky to get a warrant from Judge Edwards and get a seizure on the money for the victims so we could get that back to Montgomery County. And, when we did have a seizure on the money, we had the money in our possession. We then had to go forward and do a hearing. And we gave notice to the account holders if they wanted to be present at that hearing to make sure that everything was on the record and it was in front of Judge Edwards and his court. And then he issued the final order that we were allowed to return Ms. Nowak's money to her possession.
They didn't take it in their heart to show up at court.
They did not, no.
Tell me about, you're part of the new division at Prescott with the white-collar crime. Tell me a little bit about the division.
Yes, sir. I'm the chief of the white-collar crime division at the DA's office. We're really happy. There's been special funding to create a position at the DA's office and as well with the Sheriff's Department, because it goes back to what Ms. Nowak was saying, that she was surprised with so many different types of crimes and sometimes violent crimes. She was surprised that her case regarding money and finances was given the attention that it was given. But we also need to understand, and we've taken the stance that financial crimes can devastate people's lives just as much as a crime of violence can. So we're trying to get out there and get ahead of the curve with the technology and the investigation to be able to bring these perpetrators to justice and, when possible, to return the stolen property or the fraudulently obtained property to the victims.
How common, have you had any complaints on eBay before? Is this the first one you all had, or you quite a few of these?
We're a newly open division, so this is the first one through eBay, but we're hoping by getting the word out and the story out that hopefully it'll be the last.
What about people buying on eBay, or people buying online?
I think people buy online all the time, and I think that anybody who buys online on a regular basis has probably had an issue at some point with not receiving the property. I think that probably a lot of things don't get reported because it might be a small dollar value, or maybe people think they're embarrassed and they don't want to come forward to law enforcement. But Ms. Nowak did the right thing. She contacted immediately eBay, then she contacted law enforcement, and had it not been through her prompt actions, we wouldn't have gotten to the money in such a quick fashion, and she may not have gotten it back.
Now what about, okay, it was tied to the Russian Mafia. How did they make a connection there?
I think it was through the stolen passports. I think that was the key piece of information, was that they had already linked the thefts of those passports with those names to mafia activity. And then when those names popped up on that Bank of America bank account, it tied it all back into who was responsible.
Now, where do the passports come into play here?
The passports, the people, the names that were being used to sell the tractor and the names on the bank account were the same names from passports that had been reported as stolen on a prior occasion. So that's how that investigation had already been going with the stolen passports. But then this came in later on, and that's how they figured out who was behind the tractor situation.